Maybe you're skeptical of the shared ownership scheme. Shall I? Shan't I? Is it wasted money? Do I ever own the property? In this video, I discuss the most common questions and also the process and how to work out if you qualify for the scheme. Let's get to it. What's up? Alex Kerr from Mortgage Chain, and on this channel, we provide the best tools and tips to first-time buyers. If we're meeting for the first time, please consider subscribing. Let's jump into the video. So what is shared ownership? Shared ownership is where you purchase a percentage of a property and rent the remainder from the housing association. Typically, you would buy a share starting at 25%, 35 and 50 are also common starting points, with the idea of purchasing the remaining shares later on down the line. Shared ownership is also commonly used as a stepping stone onto owning properties outright later on, because it is considered better than renting outright. So do I qualify? That is the most common question I get. Also, a lot of people will go to the affordability calculators to see how much they can borrow without putting in the rent from the housing association and associated service charge costs and annual ground rent. So in regards to affordability, I have worked out a calculation which works out in the majority of cases. So let's say you were looking to purchase a shared ownership property which full value was £200,000. Now, housing association calculations do vary, but the majority of the time, if you take 12.5% of the full purchase price, that is what your salary pretty much needs to be to qualify for the affordability. So 200,000, your salary would need to be around 25,000. Now, in some instances, I've seen it work out to as little as 10% of the full purchase price. So in this instance, 20,000 would qualify. And then in other examples where the housing association calculation is more strict, occasionally 15% would be the marker. So in this instance, 30,000. But generally speaking, 12.5% is a really good and accurate figure to use at the time of this video. Another common question, how much rent will I pay? Now, normally if you're looking for properties on Rightmove, Zoopla, on the market, it will lay out most of the time what the rent, the ground rent, the service charge is. However, there are a lot of instances when agents do not put any of the associated costs onto the advert. So what you need to do there is work out the remaining share. So 200,000, let's say you were purchasing 30%, which would work out at 60,000. That means you're renting 140,000 from the housing association, which is the remaining 70%. Now, if you take that 140,000 and times that figure by 2.75%, you'll find that equals £3,850. Divide that by 12, you're looking at £320 per month for the rent that you would need to pay to the housing association. Now, again, sometimes it works out a little bit higher, as high as 3% I've known, not really lower than 2.75. So that give you a really good marker. If you use 3% overall, that should cover any other costs such as ground rent and service charges. So what is a housing association? A housing association is the company which owns the property and sells you a percentage of the property and will rent you the remainder. It is their responsibility to make sure everything's kept in order and clean, and also provide buildings insurance should anything happen to the property. Staircasing. This is where you purchase further shares later on down the line. Always make sure you are able to purchase 100% of the share at a later date. If the housing association does not permit it, do not buy the property, as you will find it hard to get a mortgage. Is it worth buying a shared ownership property? Again, on previous videos I've done on YouTube, there has been big debates around, is shared ownership worth it? There's a lot of pros, a lot of cons. There's mixed opinions here with a lot of negativity towards housing associations. However, this is my opinion. Shared ownership isn't always a long-term goal. It is fantastic for using just as a stepping stone to get onto the property ladder to then buy your own property outright later on down the line. Sometimes shared ownership will provide you the property you need as a family, where beforehand, without the scheme, you wouldn't have been able to afford a property what you required for you and your family. You can buy a shared ownership property, get the mortgage balance down, and then sell it within the near future and use that as your deposit on buying a property outright. You may have salary increases along the way. My opinion is that shared ownership is better than renting outright when these two schemes are put next to each other, because you own a percentage of the property and you are repaying a mortgage debt which can be used as a deposit for your next property later on down the line. So I have put in the show notes a recap of the calculations used when understanding affordability and associated costs, as well as a free guide which I've just produced. It's a tick list of items that you must check with a housing association when considering shared ownership. Make sure to download that and make sure you cover off every item in the list. Question of the day: does shared ownership provide a stepping stone onto the property ladder for you? Let me know in the comments. So if you'd like to understand your shared ownership options, whether you can go onto the property ladder or not, and you'd like a free chat with me, just click the link to my diary in the descriptions below and choose a suitable time and date and select analysis call. This is a free, no obligation 10-minute chat to understand your options. Please note, we are obliged to tell you that your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage. So thanks for checking out today's video. Please do check out the show notes for a recap on today's content. And if you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing or ringing the bell. Till next time, Mortgage Chain are bringing the best tools and tips to first-time buyers. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you in the next one.